Hi, my name's Jeff Prentice. Let's talk about the color wheel. This is the front, this is the back, and the way you use this is by spinning this little piece on the inside here, and it shows you, and here's your main hues on the outside here. And for example, when you add yellow to blue green, you get this color. Remember, this is an old beat up color wheel that I've had, and it's a little bit blown out. And when you digitize anything, the colors aren't exactly true, so keep that in mind. But I think you're going to get the idea here. Green, when you add red, you get this kind of like desaturated dull color. So that's the way it works. You can spin this around and put it under any color, and you can say, well, what does it look like if I had yellow or blue or white or black? Okay. Um, on the other side, you have tints, tones, and shade. And so when you add tints to any color, you get a lighter color. When you add black to any color, you get a darker color. And when you add gray to a color, you get a tone, and that desaturates the color. So they're very, very distinct in the way they work. And just keep in mind that after this video, we'll be going around and looking at some kind of what we call maybe real world applications in character design or graphic design or in interior design, and how these things that we're talking about right now in color, how your decisions will affect how people react to your creations. All right, but just basically, you have uh, your primaries, all right, blue, yellow, and red. All right. Primaries, because you cannot mix any color to get red. You can't mix any color to get blue. You can't mix any color to get yellow. Okay, what happens when you mix two primaries? What happens when you mix yellow and blue together? You get what they call a secondary. Okay, so 1 and 1 is 2. So yellow and blue make green, blue and red make violet. Okay, so those are secondaries. And then we have red and yellow make orange. All right. So what happens when you add a secondary and a primary? All right, you get what we call a tertiary. Okay, tertiary meaning third. So you combine blue and green, you get blue green. You combine blue and violet, you get blue violet. You combine violet and red, you get red violet. And you combine red and orange, you get red orange. And you combine orange and yellow, you get yellow orange. And yellow and green, you get yellow green. All right. How to make these work. A couple of things, and they go over some of the terms here: intensity, value, shade, tints, tones, primary, secondary, tertiary, um, etc. So you've got your cool colors, okay, which tend to recede. There's a kind of a narrow gamut of them, and then you've got your warmer colors, which we associate with things like the sun and fire, right? Um, Notice that when you start going around on the wheel and you start, see, as you move from blue towards orange, you're starting to add warm colors. So, sure, blue green is a cool color, but green to me is a neutral because it's combining both yellows and blues. But when you get into yellow green, that's a warm green, and then you get into these warms. Just so we're talking about usually in design, we're talking about cools, right? A cool palette, a cool color scheme, or we're talking about a warm color scheme, okay? Or if you want contrast, we might be combining blues next to warms. All right, what else do we need to know? When you go across from any of these colors on the color wheel, you find its complement. Okay, so yellow, you jump straight across. The complement of yellow is violet. The complement of blue is orange. The complement of red is green. And true for the tertiaries, blue, violet, you go straight across, you've got yellow, orange. Why is that important? Because when you're mixing colors, number one, when you mix complements, you dull your colors down. So if you have a color scheme where you don't want to have a lot of bright colors, or you want to have a very subdued color scheme, one approach might be to mix your complements. The other thing is complements next to one another are very contrasty. So, you have green and red, the Christmas colors next to one another, very bright, all right, and contrasty. And maybe sometimes you want that. Now, what about colors that are situated equally from one another on the wheel? Those are called triadic, so blue, yellow, and red. You can take any of these colors and go across and count over, 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Those would be your triadic color schemes. And think about it, those would be very balanced. So blue, yellow, and red, those would balance one another out in kind of a triad. You also have tetradic color schemes, which would be two sets of complements. Okay. As we look at practical applications, right now it's all kind of theoretical, and you're like, well, why is this important to me? But when we get into practical applications, think of music. I don't know how many of you play guitar, but you have, your basic chords, say E, A, or B, or C, D, and G. But then you have your G7th, or you have your, your minor, G to an E minor, and C to an A minor. You start getting different phrases and subtleties, and that's where a knowledge of color comes in handy. Split complements, for example. Let's say you had a blue and orange color scheme, and you're like, the orange is too contrasty. So what you would try is maybe going off to the side. You'd say, how about a split complement? Instead of the blue and orange, let's try the blue and yellow orange, or instead of, maybe the blue and red orange. Ways to make colors work with one another. You have your pure hues on the outside, and in the beginning, a lot of people gravitate towards that. But as you start to define focal points and figure out ways to make things shine in the dark or glow, you have all of these options. You can add black to red to have a darker red, and then you can maybe have a red highlight. Or you can have a darker red, and then instead of a pure chroma red, you could have maybe a lighter red. Or, my favorite, is adding gray and having more subdued, desaturated colors against which you can have these brighter colors. Finally, before we look at some examples, you have your analogous color schemes, which would be colors that are next to one another on the color wheel. When you do use an analogous color scheme, okay, just make sure that you're not mixing your warms and your cools. All right, so let's look at some examples. And we'll be talking about, I've kind of broken it down into graphic design, character design, which kind of includes game arts, and maybe animation, interior design. We have illustration and graphic design. I kind of lumped them together, but I'd like to embrace all of the majors that I'm teaching. All of these images were created using Midjourney, AI. I use AI a lot. I love generating images. I generate interior design images and linocut images, and anything that I'm currently interested in: seascapes, office spaces, gallery spaces, sculpture, graphic design. So all of the images we're going to be looking at have been taken, have been generated in using AI. So just a basic one. Again, I'm kind of thinking of a theoretical situation where you're presenting some work to a client or someone you're working with, and perhaps they say, the red color scheme, the warm color scheme here, love this charcoal gray. I really like the breakdown, the texture on this surface, but let's try a cool color scheme. So we're in Photoshop. It's pretty easy. You just go to your And we're going to be doing some basic ones. I want to go fairly fast here, but you can start to see, well, what if we go into maybe an orange instead of a red? What does that do? You know, it might be that someone says, well, it looks more like an earthy. We want more of a clay look. So we take it over to maybe an orange, and this is where your desaturation comes in. But here, you know, you can see, well, you know, do I like, I won't play with lightness and darkness because it's too global. It globally lightens and darkens. So, you know, you could say, well, yeah, I like that better than that red, you know. Or you might say, well, what about a cool color scheme? Let's find our cools here. Let's desaturate it. Let's find a cool that we like. Okay. What about a cool color scheme here? Well, almost like a steel or metallic. All right. So that's one example where you're opening up your options and you're thinking about warms and cools and the feeling that it's giving you when you're looking at that image. Now, this is one in the classroom. We in these color studies sometimes we create these designs, and I think it's easy to miss the idea when we're creating abstract designs, and we're not in our field of study. We're just creating like pure 2D design or color theory kinds of abstract designs. It's kind of questioning, well, what's the use? So I thought it would be kind of fun to get kind of playful with it and maybe give you an aha moment and take one of these designs. This is one design that was done in a class, and it's a basic geometric design. Kind of reminds me of a mountainscape. So imagine that you have a client interior design that says, I want a large painting in my bedroom. I have this big modern spare bedroom. I want this painting, right? So you show this to them. You know, I just brought this in. It just basically took the design that we had done with paint and brought it in and put it into a space just for fun. All right. So imagine the client says, well, I want more contrast. So you say, okay, so let's I don't know, let's darken some of these. Let's darken some of these and let's give them some more contrast. So, boom, we add some black. So that's adding black. Let's see. How about, well, no, now we want maybe some contrast in terms of some warms and cools. Let's make this more of a sky kind of a situation. So we go over to our slider and we say, yeah, okay, that's easy. So we're going to bring in some blues, right? Some nice blues, and now we have our sky. Okay. So you can see you can start playing with warms against cools. Here's a focal point, for example. We could change that, to maybe, I don't know, something like, a red, perhaps. We could brighten it up, or we can make it, very earthy or desaturated, and we could make that fit in this bedroom. All right, so that's interior design. Again, maybe graphic design. I'm getting to you, game art character designers. But again, we can play with this and start changing. Maybe we just want one red element highlighted. Or again, if you're playing with warms and cools, ooh, I kind of like that. I like the way it resonates. That kind of ochre with that red. All right, so you see how it's working there. Okay, I really like this character. So he has a tie, and I think originally the tie matched the skin. So I've selected the tie, and let's just, again, see, what happens when maybe we make the tie. Look at that. I kind of like the blue. The blue maybe matches a little bit more in the eyes. So you can do that. That's more of an analogous color. Then as we start moving around towards the blues, there's a beautiful rich blue color, right? Now we're getting more into the warms, and pretty soon we'll be getting into more of the complementary colors, green and where's our red? Green and red. Okay. So the question is, do you want contrast with the tie? Do you want the tie to kind of be the focal point, or do you want the face, of the alien? And so, in which case, you might want to desaturate that tie and make it so that your attention goes more to the face and less to the tie. So, character design. More character design. I mean, animation. You could have these things moving. Game art, I think I would be looking at more environments, and we can definitely look at that in a different video maybe. But characters, games, environments, animation. You can see some possibilities here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn her off, and I'm going to go over here to this guy, and let's just see. Do we like? Do we like it a little bit, fleshier? Right now, I'm globally desaturating everything here. If you desaturate, you'll notice if we desaturate the character back there, and then we put the girl back in there. Now the girl is more of the focal point, and not so much this character that was bright orange. All right. So, in conclusion, thinking about colors that are related, colors that are contrasting, colors that are desaturated, fully saturated, colors that contrast with one another, colors that conflict with one another. You can use them just like you would use notes when you're composing music to create the environment that is the one that you want, so that you can define your focal points and define your environments the way that you want them to be exactly.